Welcome to the Quantum Revenue Expansion Podcast. My name is Ursula, and I'm a sales expert, strategic business coach, and USA Today bestselling author. I love sharing strategies that show you exactly how to turn your annual revenue into your monthly revenue. If you're looking to take a quantum leap in your revenue or sales, your team, your productivity, your success, and your life, then you are meant to be here. My goal in every episode is to help you take your belief that it's possible to 2x or 10x your revenue while working way less to knowing that it is happening right now. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we talk about turning your annual income and revenue into your monthly income and revenue. Super excited because today, Rebekah Hall, the Rebekah Hall, and I are going to talk about why profit matters more than sales. So brought Rebekah back to have this conversation for a lot of reasons. Rebekah and I have a lot cooking behind the scenes. There's just a lot going on right now with the company and other things that we're working on. We're working with even more clients these days. And a lot of times those conversations we have with clients really spark what we want to talk about in the show. And so we've really been seeing some themes when it comes to sales and profitability, like how are they linked? And, often we can think sales are more important than profit. But when we look at our bottom line in our bank account, we know that's not true. So Rebekah Hall, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have you here.
Always like being here.
We were having a pre-conversation, which was really interesting. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, we got to make sure can you say it exactly that way? Because that was really good. Just some of the things that we want to talk about today. And as you guys know, today you can actually apply to be part of the CEO table. For the last couple of weeks, you had the opportunity to get on the wait list. Applications are now being accepted for the CEO table. We have opened up 6 spots for fourth quarter. And we're really opening up to entrepreneurs who are ready, really ready to make a breakthrough in their business for that 2X or that 10X or whatever you've been thinking about, and join a community of other CEOs who are making it happen. So if you haven't sent your application in yet, it is in the show notes below. And we'd love to have you. I'm sure if you've been a long-time listener, you've heard from our clients and their success stories and how we've been able to support them. And it's not always rainbows and butterflies. Let's be clear about that. There's business growth, Rebekah, as you always say, is not linear. It's like, sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's that way. Sometimes we're upside down. Sometimes we're brought to our knees. Sometimes we're laughing joyfully. It can be a very emotional journey. And if you're looking for coaches to support you on that journey and a community of entrepreneurs who are making it happen, we'd love for your next 12 months to be your best 12 months in business. So Rebekah, what would you add to that before we get into this other conversation? For someone who's been listening to us for a while, who's like, what's it like to coach with Ursula and Rebekah? Maybe I should do that. What would you say to them?
We've been coaching for a long time, right? And so it's interesting. And I think I've mentioned this before when I've talked about the Fibonacci code thing, and how I'm like, life is just like that, right? It's like it just spirals. It's like you kind of stay in the same place, but you're spiraling up and it's looking like this. And I can say for myself and probably a lot of people, we all experience things that we're like, this is familiar, or I've been here before, but you can make a different decision. You have different data. And so, profit is one of those things that we cycle back around to. It's like when you start your business, you need money. So you go do all this stuff and then you kind of get that momentum. And then you, like you said, you get dips in that momentum. And so sometimes it's like going back and revisiting after you've built this machine or this engine to be like, well, is something worn out? Does something need a new part? Is there a more efficient way to do this than I did before? Everything we have in our world has evolved. And so why wouldn't your business evolve? So sometimes that means going back and checking something and being like, oh, here's something that's worn out or needs to be revisited, or I actually have a new tool or a skill and I can actually make this work better for me. And sometimes we're so concerned about the bottom line, the sales, how much did I do in sales? In fact, you and I will talk about it today. We just talked to somebody who we thought was in trouble. And they're like, no, we're totally tracking to hit our goal. And then we couldn't figure out why we were talking to them. And then we figured it out. Profitability is down. So helping them identify what happened to the profitability and, is a big part of our conversation today.
Yeah, one of the foundational books that's out there, if you haven't read it yet, is Mike Malkovich's book, Profit First.
Mhm.
It's such a good book about, how can profit stay at the forefront of your mind? Why does that matter? Why that's important? And we, we tend to lead with sales. We tend to focus on sales first. But as you said, it's a lagging indicator of profitability, just like this client we talked to today, because they're on paper, the sales look great. But
Mhm.
when the profit margins aren't there, right, the bottom line profit is not going to be there. And so Rebekah, like, let's kind of dig into this for our listeners. Like, how do I know if I have a profit problem?
If you feel like all you do is work and you don't have the money for what you need, if you're struggling to make payroll, and that means even to yourself, right? That you feel it. You feel it when you're not profitable, when you don't understand why you don't have money. And so you don't know what the leaks are in the business, right?
Mhm.
And we'll talk about some of those leaks today, but profitability feels like you don't have the things that you want. The business doesn't feel like it's running healthy. You feel like you're spinning a lot of plates, fixing a lot of leaks. Like you're not feeling that relief, that profit. When you have money in a savings account, right? If you had 20 or 30 grand in a savings account and I don't know, the water heater went out. I don't know if people even still have those. In 20 years, people are gonna be like, what's a water heater? But like you would not panic. You'd be like, "Oh, I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but I have money in savings." Like that's kind of what profitability feels like. Like you know enough about where your money is or where your numbers are that you don't freak out when something out of the ordinary happens or when you want to do something. Oh, I have that, right? And that
Yeah.
could be cash, line of credit, like things like that. But the business can provide that. It can provide that cushion for you.
Yeah. As one of the things we're really focused on right now is profitability for our clients and focusing on that at the CEO table. So much so that we created something called the profit calculator, which, by the way, when you apply to be part of the CEO table, no matter what, you get a link to the profit calculator, and it's a tool that I developed to, and I really say Trisha drove this in the background, so thank you, Trisha, to put some numbers in and figure out how profitable you are right now and what profitability would look like if you 2x your revenue and you were paying yourself your dream salary, because those are two areas that I find people are always like, I wish I was paying myself more, or I wish I was paying myself at all, and I wish my revenue was higher, right? Because all those things. So it's a tool that gets you thinking about those areas, like, are my sales where I want them to be? Am I paying myself as much as I'd like to? And if I did, what would be, my best guess, what would be the profitability left over at the end of the month, or the net profit, as we call it? What we love to see, and I can think of a particular client right now who sold so much that he ends up having piles of money at the end of his year, and like has to make a plan for that money. So let's talk about that for a minute, because that's not always a great thing either, Rebekah. Like, why? Like, share with our listeners, why is that not always great either? Like, we think having a big pile of money at the end of the year, it's like, whoa, look how profitable I am, look how successful I
Yeah,
am. But
he's
why
got a
isn't that
big yeah,
great?
he's got a big tax problem, right? He's got a
Right.
problem. That's the biggest thing is like his CPA is like, you got to do this. You're going to be paying. You're just going to be giving away. So right now you're giving away your profit because you didn't
Mhm.
know what to do with it. So again, it's like it's understanding like it's called cash flow for a reason, right? And one thing that you say, I repeat it all the time, is money needs a plan. Even if
Yep.
that plan is to go into a savings account or whatever it is, or to reinvest in the business or to hire help. We'll talk about how hiring can influence your profit later on. But to just have a pile of money, right? Doing that like energetically, like if you listen to the show at all, energetically, that's just not good. That is stagnant energy, that's not in play and actually can be more weighing than anything else. And so for this particular client, every year he's trying to figure out how to spend money at the end. And that's stressful. I know a lot of
Mhm.
people are like, oh, if I had a pile of money, it wouldn't be stressful on me. But it actually is. I can definitely think of times in my life. In fact, I just had a time where I've been holding on to my $200 Costco reward certificate for several months, looking for that thing that I want to spend it on. And it was funny because my wife a week ago, she was like, don't you still have that? Like, because we were doing a party. That's what it was. We were doing a party. We had to go get food at Costco. And she was like, can we just use the $200 thing? I'm like, no. And she's like, what, are you treating it like it's a reward? And I'm like, on the certificate, it literally says reward certificate. Like, and I went to Costco with that $200. I walked all over. I couldn't find anything that I wanted to spend it on.
Wow.
Because like when you have it, you don't think about it. But when you don't have it, then that's all you think about. Right. So what's funny is I'm like, oh, I want this thing. And I got it. It was like, I want it. Yeah. It was like functional. So then I got made fun of because they're like, oh, that function's really a reward. I'm like, well, I wanted one. And then of course, the very next time I went back to Costco, there was a bunch of stuff that I was like, well, crap, if that was here the last time I had that $200, I would have spent it on that. Right.
Right.
So money's just fun. Money is an energetic play with you. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you don't play, right? So you don't track it, you dogpile it, you hoard it, like anything you do energetically, it's not going to line up in the flow that you want it to line up in. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's so important to not have any profitability, but have so much profitability that you're actually like creating blocks there as well, or later down problems like taxes.
Yeah. And we've all been in every one of these situations. Let's be clear. I remember, hiring a coach one time when I had $54,000 sitting on my credit card and no idea how I was going to pay that back before I hired the coach for like 30 grand. And I just remember thinking, I don't like what's going to happen. But what I know is that when I invest in my business and when my business is moving, great things happened. And I had a 10x return on that coaching investment. And I'm saying that because to your point, Rebekah, money has to be moving. And for someone who didn't come from money, like I had no idea how to manage my money. I didn't know what to do with a lot of it. No one had taught me finance, right? No one taught me money. And I think that's true for most entrepreneurs. And so if you're someone who's been like, the money comes in and you hoard it, I totally feel you. Like that's a normal response. And when you do that energetically, you're kind of saying to the universe and to your business, like, I don't think any more money's coming. I don't think any more business is coming. And it kind of will all start to shut down. Now, I'm not saying go out and just spend on everything,
Right.
but money does need a plan. And that's where one of the things we do with our clients is we create a projection plan and we revenue model out 12 months. So you can be really clear, like when this money comes in, here's where it's going to go. Here's the profitability that's left over. And I also know what I'm going to do with that money personally, because Rebekah, let's talk about that for a minute. It's like money not only has to move through your business, but there's something really powerful when I say money needs a plan, which I know you love saying. Money needs a plan. Money has to have a plan. You got to tell it where to go. When it moves into your personal life, what are you going to do with the money then as well? Because the clearer you can be about that, the more money can come in through your business. So for me personally, like I know when my husband and I have had big goals, like, we purchased, originally a couple of years ago, a vacation home in Florida. Well, the money had to show up for some of that, right? We, whenever, like even now, like we're doing some new things on our current property, money showing up for that. But if you don't have anything, if you have nowhere for the money to go or no life for it to be spent on, it can't come through. It's like, I think of like Oprah, right? And Oprah is a billionaire, a lot of money moving through, and her personal, like think about even Oprah's list of favorite things, right? She's very clear on a personal level what she's going to put on her feet, what she's, putting on her face, like what kind of food she likes to eat, like what kind of dish, like all of those things. And I'm not saying you have to be like Oprah, you have to be a billionaire. I'm just saying pay attention to how entrepreneurs spend the money that comes through the business. Think about their lifestyle. And not everybody has the same lifestyle. I'm not saying that as well, because some people who look like they don't have a lot of money because they don't have a flashy car or a flashy house, they're traveling all over the world, right? So it's not so much about the judgment of your values and where you spend your money. I want you to have a place for that money to go. Rebekah, how has that experience been for you? Like when you have a clear plan, because you've had a lot of places for money to go over the last few years, right? Like
I mean,
money.
I definitely recall a time early, like when you and I, we weren't working together as much as we do now, but you would call me and be like, "Hey, so what kind of goals and dreams are you working on right now?" And I would be like, "Oh, I'm getting married." So yeah, you would always kind of bait me a little bit with like, what was I working on? So for a project that you're like, "Oh yeah, you could totally make that money here to do that." So I totally agree, and it's very much like time. Right. And it's that important. And I think if you don't manage your time, it's the same thing. right? If you've got too much time and nothing to do, you know, like I used to have this dream of like, oh, I'm going to amass a big pile of money and then not do anything. And then like that actually happened in 2017. And then I was like, well, now what? Like all my friends still go to work, or what am I going to do with my brain? Or, you know, you can only golf so much and get mad at that. So, you know, it's the same thing. It's all flow. Like you've got to, what's like, it's manage, you know, you manage
Yeah.
it. Just like you would manage relationships. If you don't put into a relationship and just hope that's always going to be there, like that might not work out. Or if you're just like suffocating a relationship by being there all the time and you don't ever like, you know, it's not going to work out. So money and time are very similar in that point.
It's a really good point about relationships and money. I've heard some people like this is they're experts in the space, right? Like really pointing out just how your relationships are in general are like there's some overlap to how your relationship is with money.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I've noticed over the years, the more expansive I've become with relationships. In other words, for me, not having 75 blocks up or walls around me, being more authentically myself, being willing to, open myself up to more friendships and more relationships. And, the more expansive there that I've become, the more expansive money has become
Mm-hmm.
for me. And I'll
Yeah.
say like that, doing that personal development work has paid some of the biggest dividends in who I've become, who I'm being, and how I can like how opportunities, have shown up for me. So for you, how is that shown? Because I know you and I, neither one of us came from a lot of
Right.
money. In fact, we probably have we have some stories about that. But how has that shifted for you over the years? Just your relationship with money.
Well, for myself, and I tell anybody else, the first place a relationship you look is with your parents.
Yeah.
You know, what was the relationship? What is the relationship? Yeah, I didn't come from money. In fact, like a very common saying or that I would hear echo through my house is my dad telling my mom that we're negative X amount in the checkbook. Right.
Mm.
And, part of it is like we sometimes, or I'd say most of us, like sometimes you meet couples that like somehow they're on the exact same page financially. Like we're going to save. No, I mean, like usually you have like a saver and a spender or whatever, because we value different things. There's no shame about it. It's not like a good, bad, right, wrong. But, like my dad wasn't a big spender. My mom was a big dreamer and a big spender. And so there was always that clash and there was never the collaboration.
Yeah.
Right. And then at one point, my parents actually did make a bunch of money, which was driven by my mom, but my dad wouldn't step into it because of how he grew up. And so it just always created these issues. But a lot of clients we work with, I do have that conversation because what's keeping them from sales or from profitability is something that they learned about money early on, or what
Hmm.
it meant to be successful, or what it meant to be wealthy. And so it's crazy how like these little blocks that you didn't even think about talking about. In fact, I personally, like to be transparent, discovered one literally 2 days ago that I have with people in my life. And I was like, I kind of feel like an ATM. And I know no one in my life is using me like that. I know that. But like I kind of take that on a little bit because I was not looking at that. I was looking like, well, what can I provide? Like, what's the foundation for success I can provide for the people that I care about? And there was some leaks. There was some gaps that, like, because of my stuff growing up,
Hmm.
I literally was like, oh, that was from my parents doing this, and I didn't want to be like that. So then I created this for my kids, and now look what that looks like. And it's not like, it's not like we're in a fight or anything like that. But I'm like, ooh, that's probably not a healthy relationship, and that's definitely affecting my profitability right now as a family, right? So, and
Yeah.
that's the first place to look is go look at how you grew up. What were those money rules? Like, how did would you if you didn't grow up with a lot of money, would you be willing to tell your parents what you're worth now, or would you be
Yeah.
embarrassed? So, I think that's very very good point on the relationships with money,
Yeah.
or work with the relationships you have with other people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that I was kind of giggling only because you have 5 children. I only have one, and I already like I feel like that sometimes too. It's like balance with kids. It's so hard, right? For those of us who maybe didn't grow up with a lot of opportunities, or you know, um, and I don't feel sorry for myself. Let's be really clear, because I would not be who I am today
Mhm.
I'd be such a different person. Like if I'd been gifted all those opportunities that I thought I wanted at the time, like I would not have learned how to be scrappy, how to figure things out for myself. And so then, my husband and I are consistently, continually in this conversation of how we parent our son,
Mhm.
right? Like how much we give. Well, how much do we actually want him to earn something? Like just like the mental game. So I can't even imagine that times 5. So much love to you and Jess on that journey because and you're ahead of me, so I get to learn. So thank you also for all the shares. One of the things you touched on, and like we wanted to make sure we saved time for and came back to, are the money leaks in our profitability. Because man, have we found some lately. And like I have been combing our financials, and we're in the middle of making some shifts now with bookkeeping and CPA in at Ursula Inc. And I'm just like, let me just say this. It's not fun. Like there are times when I avoid, like, I'm like, do I really want to look at my credit card, numbers? Cause that's where we run. I like to get points. So a lot of our things in the business go through there. And I started to take a deep dive like 6 months ago, like a really deep dive, not just like a high level look at the numbers of where the money is going, but like questioning every penny that's gone out and like having a conversation with Trisha of like, are we even still like, what does this thing do? Like, why are we doing this? And Trisha and I, over the last 4 months, shout out to Trisha. I hope you see this on the transcript. We have shaved off thousands and thousands of dollars in software subscriptions. And we've made some big changes that cost my effort, time, money, right? All those things. Like I get like when you think you have to change software and some things, it's like a massive undertaking. And for one of those projects, it took 3 months just to get it done, like way more time than I thought it was going to take, and money invested, and it cost us more to do this. But being on the other side of it was such a relief. So many potential leaks. So Rebekah, I know you've been doing the same, like just kind of combing through things, and like talk about that. Like how, for our listeners, like if they're thinking about their businesses, they're wanting to increase profitability, how do we figure out where the leaks are? Because sometimes it's not as like in your face as on your credit card statement of where I'm spending this money. Sometimes it's more subtle.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be, has something changed in the time that it takes you to complete your fulfillment.
Mm,
So, there's some things where it's like, oh, because of labor costs or supply chain or things like that, is it taking longer to get something completed? So, again, matching up that time. And then I would say the second place is your pricing. We give up profitability in our pricing. And, it's interesting because you can't, well, I don't know if you can't, but sometimes you're like, well, our costs are going up. Like, so I live in California. Big thing here is some restaurants have been adding on, like, they call them just surcharges because
yes.
of labor costs or whatever. And it makes everybody mad. It's like, just raise the price of your thing. Now, however, there's also going around like, people are going to like getting hamburger combo meals and showing how much more expensive it's, like $16 now at Wendy's or whatever. So but things are adjusting. People also get paid higher wages now. They get paid more money. So paying attention to not only what you charge but the price of things can increase profitability. And when we get used to paying more for something, and then I just talked to somebody actually who has a huge skill set and they're just not charging enough. I want to say they're charging like $35 and they're literally $35 an hour, and they're running into issues with the client. And she doesn't feel appreciated. She doesn't feel valued. And so when I was talking to her about this other person that she works with that charges 187 something dollars an hour, I was like, why aren't you charging like 100? And she's like, well, I don't have the credentials. And I'm like, yeah, but you have like 20 years experience, like, and all kinds of case studies and all this stuff. And what she realized is by charging this much, that the client actually didn't know that they didn't understand how to value what she did. And so just like on the pricing, because they're paying someone else for this and they're thinking like, oh, well, then this service can't be as good as this service just because of what the price is. So pay attention to your competition, like be in the market, be what makes sense. If I came and offered you a Lamborghini for $5,000, you would definitely think it was stolen, or maybe I just put Lamborghini emblems on an old Pinto or something like that, right? It's in
Right.
their mind, the value's got to make sense. So it's a good time to check on your pricing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that can bring up a lot of things as well. Like just like the client you were just talking about going from 35 to 100 an hour, that's like tripling the price, right? And side note on pricing, right? Whenever you think about up leveling your pricing, you want to ask yourself, like, what's the least and the most I would charge? Usually it's a number in between that's still aligned with you. But it's important to go through that process because, yes, you're losing money. In fact, we were just talking with a client that by stopping doing business with clients that weren't profitable, that were taking up a lot of time too, and just cutting all of that off, it really has opened up the opportunity because we just took a look into their business and we look at the 80-20 rule, like, 80% of their business is coming from 20% of their clients. I'm like, why aren't we going deep and wide here? We took a look at that. I mean, literally, Rebekah, like I can see this client
Oh yeah.
adding $2 to $5 million in revenue in a 30-minute conversation that we just had with
Yeah.
them.
And what they were doing is he was spending too much time on the road driving to, they decided to expand. They have a brick and mortar business, a service business, and they were trying to expand their regional reach.
Mm-hmm.
And he was spending so much time driving to this other region that was eating into the profitability. So then he's like, well, I'm just going to add this much money for driving that far. But then the client's like, well, but I could get that cheaper, with someone that's more local. So again, like they try to expand. And when you looked at the time money thing, that's what ate the profitability. And then what we discovered is there was plenty of business actually within the region. They just hadn't thought about how to connect with that business.
Right. And that's a limiting belief. So like for our listeners, like if you're thinking I want to 2x or 10x my revenue, a lot of times the first belief has come up, that's not possible. And here's what I want to remind you. Like if you have the heart's desire to 2x or 10x your revenue, the way to get there already exists around you. That is divine law. That is universal law. It is there. And Rebekah, I think, well, I know we have a little bit of wrap up yet, but I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, like if you've been feeling the pull to work with us, like follow that heart's desire, because when you get into the room with Rebekah and I, it's like we form a pyramid. Three of us in a room, us with you and your business. Powerful things happen. Like you just get this compound effect of energy. And I guarantee you, we're going to see the way. Like together, we're going to see the way. We're not everybody's coaches, but if you've been listening for a long time and you're feeling the pull, this is your invitation. Apply to be at the CEO table. We want to see you there. We'd love to get our hands on your business. I know we wanted to close out, Rebekah, with a little bit around team too, and how team can just totally eat into your profits in subtle ways that you might not even be thinking of. So share a little bit about
Yeah, if
that.
you're feeling the pinch in your business and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't afford to hire someone. I can barely afford to pay myself. It's really a time to look at what is the most profitable action in your business, that like what should you be doing. And for a lot of people it's going to be marketing and selling,
Yeah.
right? And we have a client right now that with one man show, like kind of like Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins, right? He had the whole band going, and it was impressive, but you could tell it was like not super efficient, and if one thing broke it was like, whatever. But hiring people to do the work, or like looking to see where team can actually help you do more volume, will actually increase your profitability. So if you're feeling like I can't, if I was to hire someone, I would lose money, I would really take a double look at what you're actually doing. And we've talked to clients about this before. We call it, $10 an hour work versus $100 an hour work. If you are bogged down in a lot of minimum wage, $10, $20 an hour work, that's somewhere to look at where you're losing profitability, because you
Yeah.
should be doing $100 plus an hour work. And so looking at your team and who can do the things to free you up to actually make more money in the business can definitely be a profit game changer.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that's a lot of the work that Rebekah loves to do with her clients, is really dig into that and to see what the potential is. Cause a lot of times we don't see it. That's why it's so powerful to have someone supporting you. Rebekah, anything else you'd want to share about anyone who might be thinking about coming to play at the CEO table before we close up today?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Everything evolves. Everything's always going to evolve. Don't try to do your business by yourself. There's been doing this for a long time. We have coaches. We look at changing up team members. I'm looking at changing up a tax team right now that I've had for 4 or 5 years. Like things change, and change is good. So don't try to do this by yourself. Find coaches, find people that have a philosophy that works with where you're trying to go. I love doing this. 20 years later, I still love doing it. I love doing it with Ursula. I mean, to have two people look at your business, and because there's more than one way to be successful in business, you do have to have a lot of visibility. Operating in a vacuum doesn't work. And why Ursula and I don't necessarily agree all the time, we can also always come to an agreement on a way through, a way to, or more than one way. And that really empowers our clients to hit the goals and be in business for the reasons that they want to be in business in the first place. So
Yeah.
I would just like it doesn't cost anything to just like opt into the Profit Accelerator, find out what's possible, get a little bit of feedback from us. Like, we love doing it. Would love to share with you and help you hit your goals.
Yeah. And I think too, Rebekah, when we disagree, that's when clients get the best of us, because then it forces us to dig into like what we're not agreeing about, like what it is. And then always something amazing is on the other side of that. It's like something gets charged because there's something else that's there that we're all missing. And then it leads to like, oh yeah, I totally see that now. Or this other piece is for them.
Yeah.
And yes, you do get the profit calculator. There's some other gifts that you get. It's all in the show notes. So just send your application in. We'd love to have a conversation with you about that. Rebekah Hall, thanks for hanging out today.
Yes.
Always fun to have these conversations. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
And to our listeners all over the world, we love hearing from you. If you have questions or if there's other things we can do for you, you can email us at contact@ursulainc.co. We'd love to hear from you. That's it for this week, everybody. Make this your most epic month yet. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to leave a review on iTunes so I know what you like and can create content that guides you to up-level your business even more. If you want more strategic business tips, follow me on social media. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and you can visit my website at www.ursulainc.co. I love being on this journey with you and can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. In the meantime, make this your most epic month yet.